Now, schools have reopened and you've bought all the school supplies by now, we hope. And you might have to pay for university registration like yours truly. And I wonder how many people actually did all of this on their credit cards or have had to borrow money so that they can actually make ends meet. Well, we are in what many called this month, which is Januworry, like we worry. And how are we going to cope, especially after the festive season? So let's get some sage advice now from John Manyike, who's head of financial education at Old Mutual. Now, John, the last time you had me in stitches. Now it's January. Yes. I'm worried. Yeah. So I'm not sure how much you're going to make me laugh this morning. Yeah. But, you know, December is past and here we are. And that question about how are we paying for the things that we need to do right now, like getting our children ready for school, how many of us are doing this on our credit cards? How could we have better anticipated dealing with this period?
So I think at the center of this really, it's about parents not having a financial vision, not having goals. Because if you've not set goals, you've got nothing to pursue. You're not working towards anything in life. I mean, even when it comes to something as important as taking children to school, we actually ran a survey during the festive season, and it involved over 1,300 shoppers around the country, and 73% of those participants actually said January is the most difficult month compared to December. Of course, this is on the back of people grappling with financial disciplines during, the festive season and the hype, not being able to deal with the hype and people overspending. And then 38% of those participants said actually they actually skip certain installments. They don't pay their store cards, they don't pay their landlords during end of December in order to survive January, especially when the back-to-school expenses come into play. And then they end up borrowing money from the mashonisas, banks and financial institutions because of lack of planning.
Now, when we last spoke, we spoke about bonuses because some people are still fortunate enough to receive a bonus and, spending that bonus wisely. But now we've voshoed into 2019 and, things are looking bleak right now.
Yeah. You see, there's another name for that 13th check. It's, well, actually the bonus is called the 13th check. But for some reason, that 13th check doesn't last until the 13th of December. I don't know whether there's a mystery in the number 13. And then you have a problem with, of course, I mean, people have been, like we said last year in December, that people were singing Monate Mpolai. But maybe it was a self-fulfilling prophecy because people are now dying in debt. We've got a financial babalas in January because now we have to look after our kids. So that's why it's very important to have a financial plan. You need to speak to a financial advisor and be very clear about where you're going in life and how you're going to be supporting your children in the future.
So you say people would then decide not to pay, some accounts, standing accounts at the end of December so that they can survive January. But how does that help you in February, March, April?
That's the thing, because then that's why the January pay is such an important one. It is one of those that is celebrated more than anything else because then people are relieved. I think now you're having people who are worried about where will the transport money come from to go to work? And those parents who are borrowing money for stationery, school uniform, and it is embarrassing for any child to actually go to school. And there are other kids who've got everything that they need, and they have these difficulties. There are parents who are stressing now about how are they going to get their children to school because they don't have that. Of course, there are other parents who might be in that situation due to other reasons beyond their control. But for those parents who have not planned and they had the money, there's something that needs to happen there.
Now, another self-fulfilling prophecy was what you said last year, and you said, around this time, people are going to the ATM and there's 6 rand and you're trying to withdraw the 6 rand that's not going to come out. But it's not a gloomy period for everybody. As you pointed out, the loan sharks, the mashonisas, the banks, there have to be some people who are benefiting during this period.
No, absolutely. I mean, we found that in the survey that we did, at least 55% of the participants actually do plan for the festive season, and they are able to stick to their budget. Of course, there was about 21% who said although they plan, they struggle to actually stick to that budget. I think as people are busy thinking about the New Year's resolutions, if there are anything to go by, because even there are issues there, you know. But if you need to start thinking about how do you overhaul your finances in 2019, I think start by putting down your vision, write it down, and be very clear. What is it that you want to do? How many children do you have? How are you going to support them to further their studies into... I listened to your question earlier with the previous guests, you know, about, you know, how are we going to pay for this? I mean, if it... And it was very clear that actually she was already thinking that where will the money come from? I mean, of course, other parents is because of many other reasons, not because they were irresponsible. But I think for those parents who are earning, and they just cannot find a situation where they can avoid rewarding themselves with takeaways every second day. You are going out every weekend like you are catering chairs. Those are things that we need to start looking at very critically as parents for this coming year, and really take control and start bossing your money.
We're out of time, but I have to just put this, because I'm glad we are having this conversation right at the beginning of the year. So as, you know, a practical exercise, what can people do starting today to make sure that next year, this time, we are not lamenting, you know, this Januworry situation?
So start with a budget this year. You know, work out realistically, what are the things that you can sacrifice, things you can do without. Make sure that you stick to that budget, but don't postpone that appointment with your financial advisor, and be very clear and be disciplined, follow through on your goals this year.
Well, thank you so much, John Manyike, Head of Financial Education at Old Mutual, giving us some tips on how to get through this very worrisome January and maybe planning better for next year this time. Well, we're going to take a break, and after that, we'll have the latest news.